to the computer. We are now recording. Quick question for you. On a scale of 1 to 10, what is your energy or mood right now? In just a second, I'm going to ask you to share it, but I'm going to ask you to share a couple things. So I'm going to ask you in just a moment to share on a scale of 1 to 10, what is your mood right now? But then I'm also going to ask you in parentheses next to it to tell me the lowest and highest numbers that you've been regularly hitting in the last few weeks. So if you could make your way over to the chat right now and write something that looks like that, a number on a scale of 1 to 10, what's your energy and mood right now? And then in parentheses, if you could give me a range of the lowest and the highest you've been in the last few weeks. Thank you for your honesty. Thank you for taking the time to share. For some of you, sharing those numbers may feel a little vulnerable. I'm seeing lots of 6, 7, 8s. I've seen a 5, and the ranges in terms of where people are at has been as low as 0 and as high as 10. I do want to say quickly that I believe in the time of COVIDia that 8 is the new 10. And I do think that there's just a curve that we need to give ourselves and the people we're interacting with, because the longer this has gone on, the more it's impacted us personally and professionally, the harder it's going to be for us to hit those upper numbers. And so I think for me, I think I was normally somebody who is often at an 8, 9, or 10. That was sort of my norm. And I've come to understand 8 is the new 10. I love being at an 8. 6 or 7, completely fine. 4 or 5, I'm still functioning. And numbers 1 through 4 are entirely plausible and possible. And that doesn't mean there's something bad or wrong with us because we're having hard days. Hard days are inevitable in life. Hard days are inevitable in the time of COVIDia. And if you remember hanging out with me in 2017, you may remember me starting the presentation this way. And if we didn't get to hang each other then, one of the first things I try to do at every presentation is take 3 deep breaths and think the word here on the inhale and now on the exhale. So if you could do that with me. I didn't say this to you after we formally started the presentation. Some of you that arrived early, I gave you the invitation. If totally fine if you don't want to be on camera today. You are certainly welcome to turn on or off your camera at any time. And if you're in a relatively quiet space, you are welcome to, actually, let me say it this way. If you're in a quiet space and you're listening to me through earphones of some kind, you are welcome if you'd like to unmute yourself so that I can hear you a little bit, and that gives me a little sense. If you're listening to me through your computer and you unmute yourself, sometimes a feedback loop of sound gets caught up, and that's a problem. But that just helps me get to know you. And questions and comments are certainly invited at any point. Feel free to plop them into the chat area. And Leslie and Aaron are on the lookout too for those questions. I'm not always good at following the chat area when I'm presenting, but I'm great at handling interruptions when we need to. So we'll dive in and do that some as well. So I know that some of you are just here and didn't get a little package in the mail, and some of you did. If you didn't, this is useful information for you to know. At the beginning of COVIDia, when I thought this might last, this uncertainty, this fear and frustration might last days and weeks. My gosh, we might be talking about this all the way to Memorial Day. Remember when we thought that would be the long term? And I thought, well, you know what? To get us through the next few weeks and maybe months, I need to figure out how to focus my little Ripley messages that I share with people on social media and in the weekly email I send out. And so over the weekend, I believe it was March 13th, 14th, 15th, as I was trading emails with my graphic designer, and I had this idea of 4 things. Because I was convinced that we got this. If we can come together and focus on curious minds, open hearts, and calm spirits while we nurture our health. And I made a little sticker up and I said to people, hey, I made the image up and I said, hey, we should make stickers of this. And because all my speaking gigs were canceled and I wasn't feeling totally flush with cash, I said, hey, to the Ripplers people, I'm like, if you want to send a few bucks to help me get these printed up, I want to make these available free. And within 24 hours, I had enough donations come in that we printed up 500 of these and had 500 stamps that I sent them out. And then some people were able to chip in more money. We've printed up 4,000 of these stickers and have still distributing. I think I've got a pile of 800 left from the last batch. And I made a quick pep talk video that turned into a 1-hour presentation called COVID Coping originally. And then I started looking at how can we help us take the lessons we're learning of dealing through this massive amount of change and uncertainty and apply it to all change and challenge that we're facing. And in the process of doing that, I stumbled upon some content that I had shared in workshops on challenge and change about when we go through challenge and change, there were 3 areas or 3 modes of acting and thinking and feeling. And it was surviving, where our primary goal is to not die, just get through this difficulty, get through this change. And then there is reviving mode, that is, okay, this awful thing has happened or this big change has happened and I've caught my breath a little bit and I know I'm not going to die. How can I get myself back to where I was before this thing happened? And then the third energy is thriving, where you're not just getting by, you're not just trying to get back to normal. You're like, okay, how can I get to the next level? And in general, before I started exploring this content in the time of COVIDia, I tended to think of them as stages. Stage 1 is survival, and then you can get better after you're done surviving, and then you can thrive. And my buddy Toby and I, that were talking a lot in the early days of COVID, he pointed out something, and he said, you know, I love the idea of thinking of those different modes because how you think and how you feel and how you act are different in each of those modes. But he said, in a typical day, the last few weeks, there have been moments where I'm just trying to breathe and just trying to like not freak out. And then there are other moments where I feel like I'm in thriving mode and I'm like, I got this. How can I help other people get this? And it really changed my thinking from first we got to survive and then we can revive and then we can thrive to how do we notice either what mode we're in or what mode we want to be in and what are the things that we can do. And so what I ended up doing is taking these 3 modes, surviving, reviving, thriving, and laying them up against the 4 components: curious minds, open hearts, nurturing or calm spirits, and nurturing your health. And so the kind of bulk of the next 20 minutes or so, what I want to do is walk you through these 4 things and have you thinking a little bit about surviving mode, reviving mode, and thriving mode. And you'll see, if you can see the screen, okay, the letters might be kind of small, but there's a little red dot, yellow dot, green dot on each of the 3 areas: surviving, reviving, thriving, SRT. And so I'm going to try to focus on each of those areas. If you have paper near you, what did I just drop and break? The microphone stand. I think we're okay. If you have paper nearby and you can grab an 8.5 by 11 sheet of paper, that might prove helpful. If you're not really a note taker, this is not required at all. And if you've got your screen open and you're taking notes on a screen, completely fine. But what I found is that if you take an 8.5 by 11 sheet of paper and you fold it into quarters, so that you've just got easy quadrants, that what you can do then is sort of mimic the screen and write in the upper left-hand corner, curious minds. In the upper right-hand corner, open hearts. In the lower right-hand corner, calm spirits. And then finally, in the lower right-hand corner, we can write nurture health. And then in the middle, you can draw a circle and you can put a little smiley face for you. Or you can try to recreate the sticker. And I do want to tell you, so some of you that ordered the little plus goodies received a little packet that included a sticker. If you didn't get that, I'm going to give you a way that you can fill out a little survey at the end of this presentation, and I will gleefully, happily send you We Got This sticker. And for people who already have one, you can, if you'd like, I would be happy to send you a Here Now sticker if you have a minute to fill out a survey at the end. So I'm going to give, it looks like a couple people are grabbing paper. We're doing good on time. So I want to dive in to this, and some of this I'm going to take a couple tangents about things that I was talking about in the early stages of the pandemic and how they apply to change and challenge. And some of this is things that have just come up in the last few weeks as I'm starting to help people pivot. This was a sprint when we got started. We just needed to go and really quickly deal with this big thing. And at some point, this became a marathon. And the problem is when people realized, oh, this is not a sprint energy that I need, this is a marathon energy and way of dealing this. It wasn't an obvious point where we all as a country or as a world decided, oh, wow, this isn't going away. We need this is long. And so a whole bunch of individuals and groups and states and countries and systems and school districts and businesses at different times we're starting to realize, oh, we can't just focus on just getting by. We're going to have to look at this a little bit longer. And so some of what we're talking about is really helpful when you're thinking about crises, acute situation. And other of this is going to be more helpful to think in terms of the long term. When it comes to our first, something has happened, a big change, a big challenge is facing us. One of the things that I've been using this to remember is the first thing we can do is try to activate our curious mind. And when we're in survival mode, our ability to even be aware, I'm having thoughts, I'm having feelings, just being able to stop and notice, what am I thinking? What am I feeling? Is actually a win. And this is a bigger deal than you might realize. So I'm going to ask you right now to just take a deep breath. And I want you to get curious for a second about what you're thinking about and or feeling right now. Just notice. No judgment. And I'm going to ask a couple of you, if you wouldn't mind, to identify a specific thought that's been going through your brain here in the last few minutes or hours or days, or a feeling or two that's been coming up for you right now or a lot lately. And in the chat bar, could you share with me just a feeling or two or a thought or two that you're having right now or that you've been having a lot lately? So Allison popped up right away, my next meeting. Perfect example. That's the thought that's in her head. No judgment. That's the thing. Could a few more of you list what you're thinking and or feeling right now? I'm tired. I need a vacation. Worrying about the health of other people. Hot. I don't have AC at my library. Funding budgets. Excitement. What is normal? What is normal? Oh, what a great question. Going back to work. When we do stop adapting to changes and start solidifying the gains already made. So there, again, that's a survival mode thought, which is good. I'm feeling overwhelmed and stuck. as you keep typing that, hear me when I say this. This is a bigger win than a lot of us realize, is our ability to stop and notice what we're thinking and feeling changes the situation. If I'm thinking about the meeting I have coming up next, and then I pause and I realize the thing that I'm thinking is about the meeting, I'm no longer the person thinking about the meeting. I'm the person who's aware that I'm thinking about the meeting. And that's a different step, because when I'm aware, I can say, is that the best use of my energy or my thinking right now? Is that something I should write down and think about later? Do I need to quickly do something to prepare for it? Can I put it in a box and maybe think about it a little bit later? And then when I am aware that I'm aware of my thinking, that's even another half step back from it, and that's another win. And the same thing is true with feelings. And we often in English, in American English, we'll often say, I am tired or I am sad. Technically, what we mean is not I am sadness. What we're saying is I am a person who is feeling sad. And when you stop and you can notice I am feeling sad, you are no longer a person who is feeling sad. You are a person who is aware that you're feeling sadness. And that's just a little half step back of awareness. And when you do that and you become aware of your sadness, you can decide, do I want to, is that okay that I'm feeling sad? Do I want to do something to feel differently? Do I want to tend to that feeling? And once you have that thought about, do I want to do something with this feeling? Do I want to tend to it? Do I want to try to shift it? Do I want to try to honor it in some way? You are no longer the person who is feeling sadness. You're no longer the person aware of your sadness, but you're the person who's aware that you're aware of this sadness. And you're deciding what, if anything, you want to do about it. And that moves you from survival into reviving. That actually elevates you without much time, effort, and energy. Because the reviving energy, when it comes to curious minds, is your ability to choose. There's this great quote. A lot of people think it's from Viktor Frankl. It's actually from a Stephen Covey book. And he says, I didn't say this. I found it while reading a book in a library, swear, true story, in Hawaii. And we've never been able to find the book where he found this. But the quote he said is, in between stimulus and response, there is a space. And in that space lies the freedom to choose our response. And in that choice lies our growth and our freedom. So in between stimulus and response, there's something that happens and there's how we respond. And there is a little bit of space. And a lot of times when we're reacting, there's not much space. And something happens and we immediately react, or ah. When we can expand that space, there's a little bit more time to respond instead of react, where we get to choose. I didn't get to choose that happened. I am in charge of how I respond with my thoughts, with my feelings. If I notice something that I'm thinking or feeling and I become aware of it, then I can choose my focus. And as I get better at that, then we can move over here and pivot from just getting by, just reacting, to saying, okay, I'm having these thoughts and feelings. I'm going through this awfulness. How can I also grow through it? And hear me out when I say this is thriving energy. This isn't for every moment of every day. And it is okay if lots of COVID days you're not feeling in growth mindset. It's okay, because survival and revival is perfectly normal now. And there are so many opportunities in a typical day, even if you're stressed, some of it, even if you're tired, frustrated, fearful, uncertain for some of it, where you can choose growth, where you can say, all right, I got some energy right now. How can I grow? How can I maximize this? The question is, when do you need to just notice what you're thinking and feeling? When can you then choose what you want to focus on instead of react, respond? And then can you pivot to a growth mindset? That is about a curious mind. If you, and before we move on, I'll just add this, that we didn't choose this. We didn't choose for COVID to happen to us, to other people. There is a way in which we can choose to look at this as a required class in college of life. This is a required class that no one signed up for, no one asked for, it's here. Since we're stuck in this class and we have to take it, if we're going to keep living, we have to take this class. How do we get the most out of it? And if you're too tired, that may sound exhausting. That's not the right energy for you. Go back to notice your thoughts and feelings and choosing your focus. When you are ready to say, all right, let's kick butt. Let's take this pass fail. No, I want to get an A in it, and see if that helps you find a different focus.
Bronwyn just said, and there's no syllabus for this course.
Oh, amen. Yes, truth. Oh, that is so good. Oh my gosh, yes. There is a lot in that. Like that's, yes, there is no syllabus. And that means it's hard because things are happening, and there's some ways there's a hidden syllabus, that we have to figure out. And there's some power because we can choose the syllabus. There are some choices we're given. That was a great comment. Let's move from curious minds to open hearts. And I will tell you that when I originally conceived the sticker and I was thinking about open hearts, I was really thinking about being compassionate towards other people, having generosity, cutting people slack. But I ended up thinking of this about something that you need to apply towards yourself as well. And so the very first step of survival, of open hearts, when we're in survival energy, is to think about three things: gratitude, compassion, and generosity. I did a pep talk video. I made these series of like 1 and 2 minute videos in March, April, May, and June. And I've been making a few more lately, but I really was almost every week. I was like, let's make something. How do I fire people up? And I made a video. I'll share you the link. I made a video called The 4 Squeegees of, I think it was called The 4 Squeegees of Love. And it was based on something I saw online, and it was focusing on gratitude and compassion and generosity. And the fourth one was forgiveness. And I picked this up somewhere, and I think somebody ended up telling me it was from a book that was written by the Dalai Lama and maybe a Nelson Mandela. It was an interesting pair of spiritual leaders that we all look up to. And I'm sorry I'm blanking on that. But I ended up loving the 4 things: gratitude, compassion, generosity, and forgiveness. And I ended up in the shower every day, where I have to squeegee my glass at the end of the shower, which I've always hated that task. I noticed that I got a wider squeegee so that it only took 4 swipes on this one piece of glass. And I started doing 1 for gratitude, 1 for compassion, 1 for generosity, and then I did 1 for forgiveness. And the idea was to think about it with who do you need to direct that outward to, but then also how do you need to apply that to yourself? So when I started tweaking and developing the hour version of this, I borrowed 3 of those: gratitude, compassion, and generosity. And survival energy is applying that to yourself. And so I will tell you that every morning I spend time in my shower thinking, how do I need to be grateful for myself? And then how can I show compassion and recognize that things are hard? And then thirdly, can I be generous? In what ways can I express generosity, feel generosity for myself? And then I get to direct it. The reviving energy gets to come when we get to direct it outward towards the people we care about. The people we live with, the people we work with, the people in our communities, our neighborhood, our family, our friends. And how can we direct gratitude towards them? How can we direct compassion towards them? And then generosity. And that's survival and revival. And the thriving can be tough, because this is where we are called to direct this outward towards all people, even people we don't love, even people we don't like, even people we loathe. And I want to pause here and teach you something that is something my friend Toby and I call our hand washing meditation. 3 or 4 weeks into the time of COVID, when we're supposed to be washing our hands for 20 seconds, and I don't know if you remember if this was true for you, but people were telling me, sing happy birthday. That was about 20 seconds long. And so I was washing my hands for 20 seconds because I was singing happy birthday. And about a month into it, I hated singing happy birthday. I was so sick of it. I was like, forget birthday. And I was telling my friend Toby this in another one of our long marathon phone calls. And we're like, well, we need to come up with something else. And I forgot what others, there was another song, Mary Had a Little Lamb Twinkle. I forgot, there's some other song. And I'm like, I'm just going to get sick of that. Well, then we started talking about the 4 squeegees, and we ended up coming up with what is kind of like a loving kindness meditation, but it takes 20 seconds. And this is what it says. It's right now, I'm doing the best I can. Sometimes my best may not seem good enough, but for now, my best is the best I've got. And then it's other people are doing the best they can. Sometimes their best may not seem good enough. For now, their best is the best they've got. And then the third stanza is, we are all doing the best we can. Sometimes our best may not seem good enough, but for now, our best is the best we've got. And when you do that, it's 20 seconds. And I'm going to send this to you all. I've got this typed up, and I had to memorize it at first so that I could make a pep talk video about it. And then I just did it. And several times a day, when I turned on the water, I would automatically go to, right now, I'm doing the best I can. Sometimes my best might not seem good enough. For now, my best is the best I got. Right now, other people are doing the best they can. Sometimes their best may not seem good enough. For now, their best is the best they've got. And I inevitably am thinking of, is it my partner, Jamie? Is it my friend that I just had lunch with? Is it somebody that just sent me an annoying email? Is it the president? Is it some politician? Is it some star that just tweeted something that frustrated me? Whatever it is, and I'm out, they're doing the best they can. It may not seem good enough. It's all they got. And then the third one is, we are all doing the best we can. Sometimes our best may not seem good enough. For now, our best is the best I've got. And it doesn't excuse us. It doesn't let us off the hook. And it doesn't mean we can't do better in the future, but it allows us some generosity right now. I'm going to be taking a little stretch break here in a second for us all, and I will go hunt that down and paste that into the chat. We need to wind around here to calm spirits, and calm spirits is about finding our center. If I ask you to pause right now and just take a couple deep breaths and think here on the inhale and now on the exhale. If I asked you right now to look around the space that you are in and see if you can identify where there is the color blue present, just look around and find some blue. And then see if you can look around and find some yellow. And then finally, see if you can find some red in your space somewhere. It's a simple grounding technique to really bring you into the present by just noticing. You could even go through all of the senses. Notice some smells. Notice what you're feeling. What's a texture that you can feel? What is some sounds that you can hear? And anything we can do to help us find our center. A lot of folks have been experimenting with meditation, with mindfulness activities. I know for me, my Calm app has been a real source of power and intention for me the last few months, last few years, actually. But One of the things that a lot of people who say, "Oh, I want to learn how to meditate. I want to learn some mindfulness techniques." They pick up something, they hear, "Okay, I'm supposed to take some deep breaths and focus on my breath." And then their mind wanders and they're like, "Oh, I'm not a good meditator." And that's not how it works at all. Your mind is going to wander, your feelings and thoughts are going to come up, physical sensations. Oh, it's inevitable. We're human. And surviving energy when it comes to calm spirit is just about finding your center. And one of the great things when it comes to reviving energy, it's just noticing that you're not centered and coming back to your center. And the meditation course that I've been taking in my Calm app is this guy, Jeff Warren, who has a 30 days of 10-minute meditations, and they're so amazing. And he talks about meditation muscles, concentration and clarity and equanimity and friendliness. And he says that when it comes to one of the major muscles of meditation is clarity, of being able to notice when you're distracted, when you've lost your thought and you've gone off on a feeling or a thought. And that instead of that being a sign that you're not meditating right, that is a win because you've become aware. He calls it the electric pop of clarity. And so when you're like, "Oh, my mind wandered," that's a win. Bring it back to the breath. And so reviving energy, and if you want to have a calmer spirit, more seconds or minutes a day, the first thing is to be able to practice, find some activities that help you find your center. Something as simple as a couple deep breaths with here now. Somebody just taught me straw breathing. And you don't need an actual straw, but I actually, because I bought some of these plastic reusable straws for the water I drink. When my friend Pidge taught it to me, I had this drink right here. I pulled it out, and the idea is you inhale for, she says, a 4 count, and exhale for twice as long, an 8 count. And when you exhale, you're supposed to do it through a straw. And the idea is, that the stress response, our sympathetic nervous response, is fight or flight. And the way to initiate the parasympathetic response is actually to breathe the way we breathe when we're not in stress reaction. And so having a twice as long exhale, very slow, actually teaches, it says to your body, "Oh, I'm supposed to chill." And the little chemicals that get released, the mindset shifts along with it takes about 60 to 75 seconds, they say, of just those kind of breathing till you'll notice a difference. And thriving energy when it comes to calm spirit is about lingering in your center, not for days, not for hours, even minutes, for minutes. And so calm spirit is really about finding your center, returning to your center when you get knocked off, and lingering in your center. Now, we are doing great on time. I want to make sure I honor our time, and we've been sitting for 40 minutes. And one of the things my Apple Watch tells me is that we're supposed to stand a little bit. And one of the things I found out when I'm doing better about that is it helps us. So we're going to take a little mini break right now. And I'm going to ask you to back away from your computer and not wrap your computer or your microphone cord around your chair. And you are welcome to stand up and take a stretch. And I'm going to ask you to just do that for about 30 seconds. And while you do that, I'm going to hit escape in my computer, and I'm going to find my hand washing meditation so that I can tape it. And I apologize that I didn't think. Well, I know right where it is. If I do that. While I find this, I would love it if you looked at the notes, if you're taking them, and say, what are a couple things that you hope when you wrap up our time together that you're still thinking about and maybe acting on? Could you type a couple things from our presentation so far that you hope to be thinking about and or taking action on after our time together? Write that in the little chat bar and notice what other people are saying. There is my little. So let me. Nope. Noticing is not judging. That's awesome. Yeah. So I just pasted in there. There is also a JPEG that I can share with you that. Oh, I know. I will send you in the follow-up, my invitation to the follow-up. Excellent, excellent, excellent. Let me hide this again. Nope. Come on. That's not gonna let me do it that way. I have all this great, I want to see everyone's face, but now it's blocking me from getting back into my presentation. Okay. We've talked about curious minds. We've talked about open hearts. We've talked about finding your center, returning to your center, lingering in your center. And I want to round the bases and get us over to nurturing your health. Originally, the idea of returning, oh, wait, this chat. I want to keep chat open just in case I'm supposed to see anything. Somebody made a comment about breathing and I had to do another breath. Love it. Originally, when I created this sticker, nurturing your health was about taking good care of yourself in terms of eating and drinking, resting, exercising, and mindfulness meditation to minimize the chance that you get sick from COVID or something else, to minimize the impact if you do get sick from COVID or something else, and to minimize our impact on the healthcare system, which needs our help, still needs our help. As I thought about expanding this, and I thought about this survival, revival, thriving mindset, I ended up coming up with these three things. And the first one in survival mode is just about a triage. I've got a scouting background. I'm an Eagle Scout. I have EMT training that I went through in college. And the first thing that I learned, whether you arrive in this a situation where you've got multiple people that are hurt in an accident or something has happened, or if you're individually, if you're in a situation and you get hurt in some way, the first thing to do is do a triage and assess. What is who needs the help the most? Or if it's you, you're looking at like, what is the thing that needs the most attention? What is the biggest problem that's either life endangering, or if there's no life in danger, what is the biggest threat to my physical and or emotional health? And after you do that triage, what's the biggest thing? What's the second thing? What's the third thing? What do we need to do to get everything back to normal? Get a good triage, assess the situation, and then and only then can you tend to the wounds. You can tend to what needs to get done. So surviving energy when it comes to nurturing your health is what's wrong, and what's the biggest threat. And to list all the things that are wrong, prioritize, is there something that my life is literally in danger or that is the biggest problem that if I solve it is going to give me some breathing room, or if I don't solve it, create some danger tomorrow or in the immediate future. And then what's the first aid? And I love that, first aid classes are out there and they've been out there forever when it comes to physical first aid. I love that in so many communities, in so many colleges and universities and schools, there is now emotional first aid or mental health first aid, so that we can, just the same way that we've done with physical injuries and illness for many years, that there are quick things that we can do to identify and help treat situations where people's emotional first aid is needing to be tended to. Thriving energy, when it comes to nurturing your health, is when we say just not being sick Just not being in crisis is not enough. And again, I can't stress this enough, is that there are plenty of times where we're in survival mode, where something big is happening. You know, this hurricane Laura is going through, the fires out in California. And it's not the time to think about maximizing well-being. It's, oh my gosh, how do I stay alive? What is the biggest issue that's a threat to safety and life right now? And how do we tend to it? So a lot of surviving and some reviving. But even in the time of a chronic situation like COVID, where it's going on for a long time, there are going to be opportunities where we can say, in some ways, I'm not in immediate crisis right now. In some ways, I've tended to the things. Is there a way that I could be tending to my physical health or emotional health in ways that sets me up for thriving, for maximizing my well-being? Could I be reading a book or listening to a podcast a couple minutes a day that might help boost me? For me, one of the things, I have a morning staff meeting every morning. A person who taught me a lot about organization, I reconnected with her a few months ago, and I was feeling very scattered and all over the place. And I reached out to this woman. She used to have a company in Madison. We both lived in Madison, Wisconsin, called Ducks in a Row. She helps people get their ducks in a row. And I was feeling very scattered and all over the place, and I was trying to help other people, and I was like, ah. And I thought, I'll talk to Irene, and she will give me some tips on how to get organized. And so we jump on this call, and I'm telling her about all the things that are going on. And a couple minutes in, she goes, stop. She goes, I need to set and clarify something for you right up front. She says, your phone, what are you, iPhone or Samsung? I said, I got an iPhone. She says, when you are up, when it is time to update the apps in your phone, you notice how you can do that and in the background and still do other things while you're updating your apps, but your phone isn't as fast. It's slower because the phone is using some processing power in order to update the apps. She said, Paul, we are individually and collectively going through a massive system upgrade. And it is taking processing power in order to do that, individually and collectively. You are not going to be as organized as you usually are. You are not necessarily going to be as creative as you usually are. You're not going to be able to solve problems as quickly and efficiently as you usually do. Not because you're broken, not because there's something wrong, but because a piece of your processing system is being used to comprehend and make sense out of something that is very hard to make sense of and to figure out what to do. And I'll tell you, that reset my expectations. It lowered, I have never been somebody who thinks it's a good idea to lower expectations. When I used to supervise and lead teams, I would say the worst thing I can ever do to you is to lower my expectations of you. But man, did I hear Irene when she said the most effective thing you can do for yourself is lower your expectations. And I'll tell you, it helped me eventually accomplish more in 2020 than any year that I have been productive as a professional. Ironically, by lowering my expectations. And I'll get to some of that in a second. But one of the things, so that was a big, long tangent. One of the things that she told me after we had that conversation is that you need a morning staff meeting. And I have 15 minutes every morning where I blocked off on my calendar for my morning staff meeting. And it is where I review my to-do list. It is to put things in the done pile if they're done. It's to add things that have come up during where I've taken notes on an Evernote app, and then decide what my calendar, for the spots that aren't already filled into my calendar, what do I want to try to accomplish? And I will tell you, it has made such a difference in terms of my capacity to take things and go to positive states. We have accomplished a lot. We have covered a lot of ground. And I want to make sure that we got about 6 minutes left. I can stick around for a few minutes to take questions. I want to do a couple things really quick. I want to read to you. So every Monday morning, starting 20 years ago, I started sending out a little email called Ripples. And Ripples was started in 1999. The goal was for 1 minute or less to read, 2 inspirational quotes, and something to think about for the week. And everywhere I would go to present, I would tell people it's free. There's no marketing in it. It's just my little gift. And I named it Ripples to focus on the ongoing impact of our smallest actions. And it's kind of grown and grown and grown. And now there's 30,000 people that hang out with me for 60 seconds every Monday. 5 years ago, we featured this poem that was written by Nancy Battaglia. And actually, I call it a poem. It was a journal entry. She is a therapist that helps people who are in crisis. And she wrote, "Sometimes we are called upon to be keepers of hope. Hope for a better tomorrow. Hope for friends in despair. Hope for loved ones at risk. Hope for all who dare to dream. Hope that they will not stumble alone and in the dark. For all those with whom we connect, the best way that we can nurture them is to listen with a heart that is open and to offer hope. Hope that sustains, hope that nourishes, hope that offers comfort and perhaps healing. So hold on to hope today. And if it is too hard for you to do, ask someone, anyone, to hold it for you." That ripple ended up being something I came back to over and over again to share with people who emailed me and were struggling, or who my neighbors who had hard things happen to them. And I started collecting other bits and pieces from Ripple, some pieces from my speeches, from things I found online, social media memes that I thought helped give people hope. And I started a physical pile of this content. And I had this fantasy that I should do something with it so that it's not a pile on my desk or a pile over in my cabinet when I would not want to look at this big pile. And when COVID hit, 2 things ended up happening. In the first few weeks, I pulled together and I said, I know what I'm supposed to do. And I did that. And the second thing that no one knew was that I decided I needed to take that pile and I needed to do something with it. And I forgot I was going to put this quote up while I was reading to you. This quote ended up being the opening for a book that I was able to write called Ripples of Hope, Wisdom for Navigating Uncertainty. And I was so excited when Leslie and Aaron reached out to me about the idea, that they immediately said, "Oh, we want to get everyone copies of this new book that you've written." And I want you to know that even if you didn't order a book and get a book, physical book, I'm going to give everyone the electronic version of the book so that you can read it and that you can forward it and share it with others without there being any cost involved. Because the people who helped pitch in money for the stickers, there was enough money left over for us to hire a designer and pay her, a struggling self-employed person, to design this beautiful book for us in the time of COVID. And so the PDF is free to everyone. And then some more of my Ripplers pitched in to have the book printed so that we could get thousands of them printed up. Very quickly, I'll tell you that the little sections of the book: searching for hope, preparing for hope, imagining hope, paving a path for hope, finding hope's helpers and recognizing hope's companions, activating hope, cultivating hope, and finally sustaining hope. The whole book takes less than an hour to read. It's probably the most significant contribution professionally that I feel like I've ever been able to do. And I'm so honored and excited that I get to make it available free. As our time is getting close to wrapping up, and I do want to cut the recording off at 11 o'clock so that we can keep that piece to an hour, and so that people who need to leave can hop off this call right away, but I will linger around for questions and stuff. But let me end by doing this. I want to stop the share first. I want to be able to see everyone's faces, and I want to be able to say this to you. I'm sorry that COVID is happening. I'm sorry that there is economic tumult. I'm sorry that the racial unrest that we are either a few years or a few decades or a few centuries behind on, depending on your perspective and worldview, is all happening at the same time. And I'm not saying I'm sorry in the way that it's my fault. I'm saying I'm sorry in the way that when you go to the funeral, when a friend of yours has lost someone, you don't say I'm sorry because you killed the other person. You say I'm sorry because it's so awful. And you are sorry that a person is going through. And I say to you, I'm sorry that we're having to deal with all of this at the same time. And I am so glad that I'm in it with other people who are finding ways to keep going, who are finding ways to survive. Notice you made it to today. Revive, not just stay alive, but go to work to help people who, many of whom, for whom reading is providing an escape that is more profound and more significant. Many of whom are still needing resources that you are helping them get to. And that even in moments that finding that we can thrive, that we can grow through this. We're not just going through it when we choose to grow through it. I hope this has been a good use of your time. I am going to make a survey link available to you. I want to share with you, oh, it's 11:01 and I promised. I want to really quickly do this. I am going to paste into the bar here a little message that says, for a brief summary, send an email to pala@2rpl.me. And I want you to put ripples in the subject line if you want a quick splash of inspiration in your inbox. So if you're already on ripples, you don't need to put ripples in the subject line. If you don't want a weekly free splash, don't put ripples, but you can just use that email. I will have them follow up and send that email out as well. And we will make sure that we're going to make the materials available to everyone. But what I'm going to do this afternoon is put together a list of the links, the PDF, the recording I will upload and get you that link, and I will get you the digital copy of the book. And I will have a little survey that if you fill it out, I will be so happy to send you one of these if you didn't get it, or send you one of these. It's 11:02. Let me hit stop on the recording.